All right, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to the Aloha Friday Real Estate Show. We're just getting started, getting warmed up. First 5 minutes, like we always do, get the mics warmed up. Peter is out today, so I will be your host, and I have a special guest on today, Mr. Kevin Rodrud from NFM Lending. We're going to talk about some lending issues and questions and stuff that you're wondering about. So if you have any questions about that, queue them up, put them in the chat. I'll be monitoring that, and we'll take those first. And then, of course, we have Heidi from Maui joining us, and she always talks about her coffee. So what's happening, Heidi, on Maui, and what's the coffee of the day?
Well, now that we're starting the show an hour later, it seems like a long time ago since I had my coffee. I was getting a new listing ready to be photographed, and I was out in the garden with my scissors cutting flowers and greenery and doing some flower arrangements. So that was kind of fun. But it is a gorgeous, gorgeous clear day on Maui. You can see across the channel to Molokai. It's really beautiful. I just have the curtains closed behind me because it's super bright in the background. But it's just a fantastic day.
Awesome. And we got Ashley joining us from Oahu. Ashley, what's happening over on Oahu?
Good morning. It is a beautiful day, honestly. I saw an open house on an oceanfront property yesterday, and it was dreamy. I was also pulling weeds and cutting flowers, but it doesn't sound like the same experience that Heidi had. Like I have a splinter and like bugs under my hair, and I was like fighting them against the road, but it was still beautiful. I'm really enjoying the weather.
Yeah, manual labor in the yard always sounds sexier than it actually is, I think, normally. So, and I don't know about you guys, but do you guys have fire ants?
Yeah, they're out here. I try to stay away from them.
Yeah, because that's an issue definitely on the Big Island is if you get into the bushes and one of those guys go down your shirt, it's like, man, it's the worst. So something to consider.
Waianae has it, not so much everywhere else, but I know what places in Waianae my clients have complained.
Yeah. All right, we got our special guest, Kevin. He's what's happening with you, Kevin? What you got going on, man?
Man, I'm riding a high from our big conference yesterday. Dylan hosted a big real estate conference, about 100 agents here on the Big Island, and just amazing speakers. It's just a really great environment. Just so many people all attracted to one great cause. Just a fantastic event.
Awesome. Yes, and you contributed to it greatly. Kevin was one of our featured speakers and also our lead sponsor. So very, very appreciative for him to doing that, and had a great session on time blocking and time management and just mindset stuff around the business world. And actually all of that will be posted on our YouTube channel here in a week or two once the video editing is done. So we still got a couple of minutes here. We got people joining. What else is happening? Any other good news?
I'm so bummed I missed the event. Dylan, you throw the best events every year, and so many of my realtor friends were going to it too, and I couldn't. I had commitments, but I'm jealous.
All good. No, and this one was a different vibe, right? Usually we do it at a hotel, and the costs of hotels have gone up ridiculous to do events, and so we ended up doing it at a beach park. A big beach park pavilion in our old airport beach park, and catered some amazing food from a local chef. And I wasn't sure how that was going to go, not having like that corporate like hotel feel, but I think everybody really, really enjoyed it. It was much more Hawaii open air. You got that nice breeze blowing through. It was a beautiful day. So yeah, it was cool. It all came together, and
that's beautiful. Beautiful weather. Yeah. You lucked out.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be beautiful because it's open air, but it's not like it's just like open walls. I mean, it's a big, huge pavilion that's like it can rain and you're fine. It's not going to affect the quality, but it's always nice when it's a good day. So, all right, looks like we are at 10 a.m. So let's get rolling. Welcome everybody to the Aloha Friday Real Estate Show. I am your host today, Dylan Donaka. Peter is out today, so you have the substitute. And I'll bring in all of my friends here. We have our regulars, Heidi Dollinger from Maui and Ashley Watson from Oahu. And we have a special guest today, Kevin Rodrud from NFM Lending. He leads the lending team that works with our real estate team, and we work very closely together to solve financial problems and figure stuff out for clients and get them into homes, whether it's in a crazy lava zone or in maybe a condominium that's difficult. And so we wanted to have a discussion around that today to give you some clarity and answer your questions. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. I'll be monitoring that and we'll take those first. But as we always do, let's do the quick rundown of what's happening on the show today. We have the quick market update that we'll do. We'll go around the horn in the market update, and I'll have Kevin give a market update on what's going on in the mortgage market. We'll answer your questions. We've got diamonds and deals, and of course, our motivational thoughts at the end, as we always do. So let's get into the market update. There we go. And we'll let's start off in Maui first. What's happening in the Maui market, Heidi?
We're doing great over here on Maui. Just in 2024 year to date, the number of single family homes that have sold is about the same. It's actually just increased about 1%. Condos selling down 9.5%. We've definitely seen the inventory in the condo market increase pretty dramatically this year, going up. I mean, in 2022, we had about 2.8 months of inventory. We're up to about 10 months of inventory. So the pace of sales has definitely slowed for a number of reasons. One on Maui in particular is proposed regulatory changes that we're still trying to get some clarity on with vacation rentals. But then also, as we've spoken about in past shows, insurance and interest rates is also influencing that market. So if you're a buyer for a condominium on Maui, I mean, it is definitely a buyer's market. You will have more choice, more negotiating power. And as far as single family homes, I mean, supply's always been limited. I mean, that market's pretty stable. As far as days on market, we're at about 114 days. And yeah, if anybody has any questions, just feel free to put them in the chat and let me know.
You're muted.
Yeah, that days on market stat is crazy, especially coming from the days of like less than 30 days on market pretty regularly. So yeah, I think that's a big issue. That condo regulatory issue is a huge unknown really on all of our islands, but I think it's probably most profound on Maui, right?
Yeah, I mean, people understandably just want to know what's going to happen, and our county council is still waiting for an economic study, and then they're going to hopefully make some kind of decision next year that will give some people some clarity. So
we'll be waiting patiently. All right, Ashley, what's happening over on Oahu on the market?
So we had, I think from our 2 weeks ago, it was a pretty parallel update from there. We have aggressively, at least on Oahu, the holiday market is a hot market for us. So October, November, December are historically pretty high, and it's staying on par with that. So last time we spoke, October, the statistics came out and the market was going up. It was warming up. We have more inventory, yes, but we also have higher contracts being signed and we have higher sold. So single family homes, the median sales price had stayed par with October of 2023, which is at about 1.1 million. And the condo market had seen an increase, which was surprising because we hear every show, I feel like the condo market had suffered and it was suffering, and it didn't. It went up ever so slightly at a median price of $525,000. And the sales went up about 2%, a little less than that. Since we were on the show 2 weeks ago, we have had 259 condos that have sold on Oahu and 148 single family homes. So again, interesting that we're seeing a lot more condo sales than we thought we were going to. I think that that's a good indication of what's to come. I think a lot of people had to get adjusted and acclimated to the news of everything. I know some people were stating that the elections had affected their decision making, so some people are jumping off the fence as well, and it's moving along. There are parts of the island that are moving faster than others, though. So in those stats, we saw Eva Beach, the whole Eva Kapolei Plain, and Pearl City being one of the most aggressive markets for single-family homes. And for condos,
that's been the case kind of historically the last like 3 years, though, right? Isn't there more activity out there?
well, there was a lull. So yes, especially during the COVID boom for certain, because that was supposed to be the second city that was being developed. So a lot of attention had been drawn out there. But then there was a redirect. So yeah, a lot of people were still interested because you have newer construction homes. So if you're not from here on Oahu, that side of the island, it's a little bit drier, it's a little bit flatter, and some distance to get to Honolulu, which has been a hub. So developers are really focused on that area. And so you have tons of new construction out there. So you have more of a suburban feel. And so you bring in a mixed community. And the rail was supposed to bring it all together. It was supposed to mend the two sides of the island. And that obviously didn't work out as planned. So there's some disgruntlement around that for a little while. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It has been a pretty hot part of the market for some time now. Pearl City, though, not Eva Beach, Plain, Kapolei, yes, but Pearl City, that's always been sort of to par with Honolulu. So I thought that statistic was a little bit more surprising. Like, for example, the sales went up in Pearl City 76.5%. Condos suffered most in town.
Yeah. Cool.
The other thing that I thought was interesting, too, that went up in the market was North Shore. So North Shore is always kind of a little bit of a somber market. There's not tons of inventory. So we saw a 30% jump of homes on the North Shore, which was surprising.
Your hometown, right?
It is.
All right, well, I'm gonna give you guys a quick Big Island rundown, and then we'll kick it over to Kevin and see what's happening in the mortgage world. So just the stats I was going to focus on today, because we're almost towards the end of the year, is looking at year-to-date stats compared to last year. And what's interesting is if you look across the board year-to-date in the number of sales that are happening, we're almost even with 2023. So 2024 is going to end the year just around, right now it's 0.78% up for the residential market. It's actually down 11% for the condo market and down 7% from the land market. And so we're going to see about the same or a few fewer sales than we saw in 23 total. But of course, everybody cares more about prices than they do sales. And on the price side, on the residential market, we're up almost 10% year to date versus last year. In the condo market, we're up almost 13% year to date. And in the land market, we're up almost 14% year to date. So prices on average are above 10% what they were year to date from 2023. And the other interesting part about this is volume. So another measurement that we use is, what's the dollar volume that is exchanging hands in the real estate market? And on the residential market, it's up 23.9%, like 24%. So what that tells us is even though there's about the same exact number of sales, the sales that are happening are higher than they were the year previous, because the volume, the total volume of the dollar volume of the sales is greater. And it's up 10% in the condo market, and it's up 17% in the land market. So significantly higher volume than we saw the year previous, even though number of sales is pretty much flat, or even we may end the year a little bit down from the year before. So interesting dynamics on the Big Island. But as we always say, if you're waiting for prices to fall, it hasn't happened, and it's probably not going to happen. I don't think any of us see that happen anytime in the near future. So let's start the discussion. I'll let Kevin kind of add his thoughts on the mortgage market in general, and of course, people care about interest rates. And I think we'll start the discussion a little bit about fear of interest rates and people's apprehensions around them and what they're doing. So, in general, Kevin, what's going on in the mortgage market?
In general, I'd say we're somewhere close to yearly highs in interest rates. I think about 90 days ago, we had a little refinance boom. Things dropped pretty good, and everybody kind of thought that was going to be the big turn where things started improving there. We've been in a kind of sideways slide, which is really good. A sideways slide meaning rates have stayed the same. And my opinion on it to the layman, I don't typically get too granular on it. Mortgage interest rates are based on mortgage-backed securities. And there's a lot of complicated math you can get into there. But to the layman, it's the way to look at it is, if you're afraid of interest rates right now, you need to look at what that actual payment is and what that payment will likely be after the bond traders get through messing with everybody on interest rates because of election and because of things that, create a lot of fear. And for most people, the difference between the two payments is in the low hundreds of dollars, which is manageable for most home buyers. And I think that if you're trying to make a decision on buying a house based on rates right now, the big thing to look at is what exactly that looks like to you in the wallet over time, because you're only going to have this loan for a couple of years at the most until rates improve. And, there's a dollar cost to that you need to weigh against the appreciation historically of any property. That's kind of how I would sum up rates right now.
So something that you always talk about, I think, is great perspective, and I'd like you to share, is the two things that are most important to someone when they buy. And in general, interest rates isn't one of them, right? They think it is, but it's not really the thing that they should be most concerned about.
Well, the thing about interest rates is it's a very public and big discussion that you hear a lot about, right? And I think a lot of people make their decisions, based on what smart people in the media or wherever, think. But if you remember, the only reason people talk about interest rates is because they don't know your specific situation and they don't know what your loan amount is going to be. So they can't tell you what the payment would be. So the first thing that's important to an individual, obviously interest rates is a macro or a high level topic. The most important thing to you as an individual is two things. One, what's your monthly payment going to be? What is this property going to cost me? And two, what's my cash to close? How much money do you have to bring in total into the equation in order to secure that rate for you? And then I kind of would add another one into there is, what does this look like over time? Because a lot of times people think that everything is going to be forever. A lot of times that first payment's the highest one because you can't really predict where the rates are going to be when you want to buy the house, and there's other elements there. But over time, you can really get close to what that number is going to look like. And I think that's the more important number to dwell on.
Awesome. So Heidi, Ashley, what are you guys hearing from the market out there from a buyer standpoint? When it comes to financing, what are the challenges? What are the fears? I mean, is it subsided? Like, what are you hearing out there?
Well,
whoever wants to go first.
I mean, yeah, there's so much in the media about interest rates, and interest rates did go up, I mean, pretty dramatically from 2022, and the market's still kind of adjusting to that, because that does impact the monthly payment some. The other challenge is really just getting the properties approved for financing. We have so many non-conforming properties that lenders don't want to lend on. So it becomes a little tricky. It's not just about getting the buyer qualified, it's about getting the property qualified. So, we're getting HOA docs in advance, making sure there's nothing unusual going on with the HOA, and just being really proactive to make sure we have as solid a deal as possible. And then with insurance rates going up, I mean, we're seeing a lot of HOA fees go up pretty significantly. And if a buyer is just barely qualifying, sometimes that can disqualify them once they find out what the new HOA fees are. But now that we're at the end of the year, most condominium complexes have set their new budget for 2025. So that is a good thing. Also, in my personal business, I'm putting together more seller finance deals, just because it's a little bit easier for people. And sometimes that doesn't work in every situation, but if you can find the right buyer, the right seller to put together a deal like that, I'm seeing a little more of that as well.
So Ashley, what about you? Are you seeing before we turn this over to Kevin to get his thoughts on this, are you seeing the same type of issues and concerns, especially in the condo market?
It's interesting. I actually don't hear personally a lot of the conversations that I'm hearing other people having. Interest rates, yeah, it's a conversation, and I feel like it's just an objection that people come across in their mind because they're in an echo chamber with their family or friends and it's in the news. And I squash it right in the middle of our conversation, because it's just, at the end of the day, It's just, what can we get you into? This is likely a stepping stone. It's probably not where you're going to end up long-term regardless. So I just really focus on the goal, where they want to be. And even if the interest rate was 0.5% less or 1% less, they're still not going to be in their dream house often enough. So we just like, okay, let's look at what can be. This is your best case scenario. Even in your best case scenario, this is where you'd be able to afford. So get your foot in the door, because that could take a year or two regardless, and just really problem solve the way out of it. So yeah, sometimes the conversation will come up, but often it ends up not being a deciding factor for a lot of the people that I end up working with. But I do know the condo market is a shift. Certainly for a lot of people, it can affect their qualification. And that comes down to, again, what makes sense of their lifestyle, what can they get into, what can they afford, in the next 5 years if it was to go up, and we just plan ahead and we reverse engineer from there. The pool of places get a little bit smaller, but not impossible.
Yeah, totally. Kevin has a great saying on this about advice on the first house that you buy. Kevin, why don't you share that with everybody? I think it sums up what Ashley's talking about.
Yeah, so Ashley just absolutely nailed it. But my sentence on all that is, if you are a first-time home buyer, I'll do the sentence second, but the one thing to remember is the house you're going to buy is probably going to look a lot like the house you rent. You're not going to level up many levels on your first house typically. But what the sentence that I always say is buy a house you hate from someone who also hates it, and sell it to somebody who's going to also hate it, but use the money that you made while you owned it to buy the pretty house.
Pretty simple.
Dylan, yeah. How many times have we went into it briefly of the first house that I ever bought? And again, if you haven't been on the show, I rented this beautiful house and it was amazing. It was in Hauula, and I lived on the east side in the Northeast for like 7 years. Okay. And I go and buy this house in the North Shore, and it was a tiny attached house next to a crazy lady who would like stab the walls and throw harpoons in the yard at my dogs. And like, I was a single, like 23-year-old, and I rescued dogs, and I was between a freeway and her, and I would like cry, and I was alone. I was like, what did I do? But I knew I wanted to own a house, and I knew I needed a yard for these rescues and yada, yada. And then from there, I ended up moving to this area called Wahiawa. And, some people have tattoos and car stickers that say exit 8. And I personally loved it there. It was still close enough to the beach and the ocean, and it was affordable. And it was a rough house, but it was bigger. It was a bigger, rough house and not so great of a neighborhood. And then from there, I just slowly made my way up to this really beautiful home in Kailua, and has a pool, and it's the canal. It checks all the boxes, but that took 10 years almost of buying houses in places that I did not want to be in, houses I did not want to be in, that were really, less than ideal for, and I fixed them up, and they're cute now, and the tenants love them, and they're happy. And now they're rentals, and now I cash flow on them. But whenever I'm working with people, I'm like, they're stepping stones. Like, you can't, the normal W-2 or even 1099 job doesn't get you to a dream home very easy. Sure, it's possible, and there are a lot of blessed people out there who can, but a lot of times it's stepping stones. When you sell the house, you get large chunks of money that you can use to get into the next one, or you leverage that house and pull out HELOCs to get to the next one.
I love it. Yeah, perfect example of what Kevin's talking about. So back to Heidi's concern, Kevin, about condo financing. What are you seeing, and what's your best advice to somebody who's that's in the condo market and is concerned about that?
So it's definitely an issue. It's an issue though that has a lot to do. I always talk about art appreciation. Like if we had the Mona Lisa here, you can make an argument it's beautiful. You can make an argument it's ugly. You can make an argument 1,000 different ways based on your own opinion. And that's really how lenders look at condos. And you have certain lending entities that look at them only one way. You have other lending entities that look at them other ways. And what you really need to make sure, and I think, Heidi talked about it a little bit, is that you're working with people that are consistently doing condo business in Hawaii and understand the challenges that are out there regarding things like insurance, regarding things like the budget, regarding the minutes, who they get the minutes from. I mean, a lot of times lenders are looking for information from HOAs that HOAs aren't willing to provide, right? So if you're working with someone that has a system that's based around getting information that somebody's unwilling to provide, you're going to have a hard time in lending. And when you go into these situations, Heidi identified that you need to have, you need to look at these documents up front and have them vetted. But the other thing that's important is you need to have a couple of different options, right? Because if you're working with a number of investors like your independent mortgage banks are, you're going to have a well-priced investor, you're going to have a medium-priced investor, and then you have a worse-priced investor. And as the condo complex or the HOA regime gets riskier, you're going to need to kind of move from option A to option B to option C. And as a buyer, who I think is our main audience here, having that strategy in place ahead of time gives you a much more predictable experience than trying to figure out all of the different options and all the different paperwork after you're in escrow. And it's very possible. And anybody you're working with should be able to do that for you.
You're muted.
What I'm hearing is the pre-work is extremely important, right? Some research, getting started early, having HOA documents, like Heidi said, I mean, is critical to this whole process, because that's something, I mean, we're definitely seeing that. I mean, it's one thing for the buyer to be qualified, but it's a whole separate thing for the property to be qualified. And not all lenders are created equal. And that's another thing is to make sure that you're working with somebody that has the experience solving those problems or has access to those different investors, right?
Well, just with Dylan's team, I mean, across all islands, we've had at least one or two situations every month where, someone has looked at the condo, not on our team, and decided that it's a loan they are not willing to do. And we've closed it conventional, not with a special investor, but with a conventional loan. And the only difference between they were trying to go conventional, the only difference is the way that our condo team is digging into it, and the questions that we're asking past the questions that they're answering, and how we're getting people to answer those. So it is very much so in the eye of the beholder a lot of times, and involves a lot of process and hard work. And you just want to make sure that, and this is where the experience of doing a lot of condo business in the state really helps out. I mean, it is in places like Hilo, it doesn't matter, right? There's not a lot of condos, but if you're in Honolulu, or if you're in the whole island of Maui, where there are a lot of condos, there's a ton of regional stuff there that is important to know if you're going to try to do a bunch of condos, as either a client looking at a bunch of condos, or as a real estate agent trying to sell a bunch of condos.
Awesome. We're going to take a quick.
Work with really matters. I mean, both in real estate and in lending, but particularly in this environment, because some lenders that aren't familiar with our Hawaii market, they'll say, okay, and they'll start going through the process. And then right before closing, they email the management company and ask them questions. And then the management company doesn't answer those questions. And then they say, oh, sorry, the loan's not approved. And they just waste everybody's time and tie up the property. So it's so important to be proactive and prevent that as much as possible.
Yeah, definitely advice, strong advice for someone coming into, especially the condo market, is if you want to work with your banker from Bank of America, Wells Fargo, from home or whatever, but you're putting your potential to close at risk, and you really need to trust your local realtor that knows the market and has worked with the lender that knows how to close condo deals here. Because if not, it can be a super bummer when you get denied at the end, and then the seller doesn't want to work with you to start over and give you another 45 days to start the process. Because if you're going to change lenders at that point, you got to order appraisals, and you got to start everything over again. And some folks will move faster than others. I know Kevin can move extremely fast, but some of that stuff is out of your control, because you have to order appraisals, order HOA docs. Those can take weeks sometimes to get done, and then it's got to go through the underwriting process. It can be a long process to have to start over twice. So.
And something else that people don't talk about on the lending side of things is, outside of just having knowledge to get the deal to close, you still have to get the offer accepted. And so when you're a listing agent, listing agents will call the buyer's lender just to verify the qualification, because sometimes it might be a friend and they give a letter and it's not fully transparent. So you'll just ask some qualifying questions and make sure it's a solid buyer. And if that lender is not answering the phone, or if they can't answer a lot of questions, or if they can't verify some of the data, or if they just don't seem hungry, they're like, well, 45 days, sometimes it can take longer, and you have another offer on the table, that affects how the listing agent has the conversation with their sellers, being like, this team of agents and lenders seem like they are informative and they're going to educate their client and get to the closing table. Because that's what you want as a seller. You want to work with someone that you feel most confident is going to close. And so not all lenders give that confidence either when they're talking on behalf of their buyer or their borrower.
Why don't you share with us, Kevin, what you do in these situations when you got an agent that's submitting an offer and it's competitive?
What you mean? What's our process as far as getting the pre-approval over?
Yeah, or helping that agent get that offer accepted.
Right. So any time one of our clients has an offer going out, we'll proactively call that listing agent. And so what Ashley's talking about is, a great listing agent, which she is, will always have like a bunch of offers that they consider the top offers, and they'll reach out to the lender, maybe 2 or 3 of them, to kind of help let their seller know what they're going to be dealing with on the financing side. We're always doing that proactively for our clients, and the listing agents are super impressed, because if you've got all these things buttoned down ahead of time, the likelihood that escrow is going to be easy is a lot higher. And what Ashley just said was, remember, when you're buying a property, a nice property and competitive offers, you want to be a product that a listing agent will buy. And that's what she's talking about, where she wants to be able to look at that offer and be like, oh, I trust this, I trust that, this looks good, that looks good. Even though, you may not be the highest offer every time, a lot of times if you can appeal to that listing agent and that seller as far as things that aren't just money or purchasing the property for more, you win, because you're getting the property at a better price and you're getting your offer accepted just by doing a little bit of this upfront work, and you're getting a better experience through escrow, because you've already knocked out a lot of these issues when you didn't have time pressure.
Love it. Let's take a quick station break here. And if you didn't get here through the newsletter and you want to make sure you're informed of all of the upcoming shows, go to livinginhawaii.com. You can sign up there for the newsletter. We got a weekly newsletter with tons of valuable content about moving to Hawaii, living in Hawaii, Hawaii real estate, everything you could possibly think of. And if you haven't checked out the website, go and check it out and sign up for the newsletter. What we're going to do now is we have a couple of things I'm going to bring this comment up. Aloha, Jim. Jim's one of our regulars, always is joining us. He's in New York City, and it's a cold winter day there. And we got Barbara from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. She's saying it's cool and rainy, but her skies are happy. And all 3 nearby ski resorts will open this weekend. That is bananas to me, but I can't. That's one place I want to go and get some snowboarding in. So I'll look you up, Barbara, when we make it there. And so we got one more comment here, and this is a great question. We'll take this question from 79 Bardock. And I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely not a condo insurance expert, but I know it's something we've definitely been dealing with. So question about condo insurance crisis. What's really the cause? Increase in rates, increase in coverage in order to be loanable, or a combination of both? Who wants to jump in here and add some thoughts on this?
I can add some.
All right, fire away.
So I think you've seen nationwide over the past years some major events in condos that have caused insurance companies to have major claims. A lot of them are construction defect related. Some are wind related and weather related. And if you just look at all insurance across the board, health insurance, car insurance, everybody's insurance is going up. It's one of the main drivers of inflation right now. So if you combine all of those things, and then combine the fact that a lot of lenders, we rep and warrant all of our mortgages, meaning we guarantee certain things in order to have them able to be sold. The reps and warrants on what we need for insurance coverage on a condo have also become more rigorous. So you have this kind of two-way street where the investors want much more robust coverage for condominium complexes because of some of these things that have recently happened in that world. And you have insurance companies and inflation naturally rising prices that is kind of combining together, where you have conventional loans that are asking for a specific type of coverage that competent HOAs that are well run do not think is necessary for their homeowners, and their homeowners have voted on it. So the people that own the property don't think it's a reasonable cost for them to do, and they don't think that it's something they need to protect against. And then you have lenders saying, well, we have to have this much, and you kind of end up in this giant issue that I think is probably going to have to be solved by Congress if it gets worse every week. It's just kind of a perfect storm of things all smashing into each other. And then it's a national rule. Like, one thing that a lot of people don't know, a lot of lenders are very strict on Hawaii for hurricane insurance, which sounds really, really reasonable, right? Like that Hawaii is a place with lots of hurricanes. But if you look at the statistics, it's not even close to the top 10 as far as states with hurricanes and massive events. So you run into this kind of statistics and inflation problem that has created a really big mess that I think our politicians need to get solved for us all.
So Heidi, what are you seeing on this? You have any thoughts on condo insurance issues?
Yeah, I mean, insurance costs have gone up. It's a result of just more natural disasters everywhere, costing the insurance companies more money. And then, of course, the Lahaina fire in 2023 was a big major event in Hawaii that caused a tremendous amount of loss. Some of the condominiums that were lost in Lahaina were underinsured. And, I've heard at least one of them's not going to be rebuilt. Some of them might not be able to rebuild. It was just a rude awakening that there are a lot of places that were underinsured because construction costs have gone up over time, and insurance hasn't always kept the pace to match that. So we're seeing insurance prices go up, I mean, across the board, not just for condos, but the thing about condos is often the bylaws and the HOA require the condo to get full coverage insurance. And there are some insurance providers that they're not making money. There's too much risk, so they're pulling out of the market. So condos have to get stacked policies with multiple different insurance providers, and the cost just is adding up. So, I mean, I think this past year we've probably seen the biggest shift in insurance costs, and I am hopeful that in the future it will stabilize some as things are readjusted. But yeah, that's kind of where we are right now.
Anything to add on this, Ashley?
Nope.
It is what it is, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing I would add. Oh, go ahead.
No, I mean, we have other things too, not just like the ocean hurricanes and stuff. We have a lot of rivers, a lot of canals. We have a lot of clay lands. Like, there's other areas too that just will flood very quickly here. And I think that that's, a factor for our insurance. But I think it is what it is. Whether you're a tenant, your rent's going to go up, and it's going to match whatever the new homeowner's insurance is going to be.
And that's a consideration. That's what I was going to add is, yes, this is an issue in condos, but it's definitely an issue in single family homes too. We're seeing carriers want new roofs on every 20 years. They want electrical and plumbing to be upgraded, which is never really a thing in the past. And that's something that's getting a lot more scrutiny today. So in any case, buying a home, buying a condo, I mean, insurance is an issue. And I feel like it's just common sense. I mean, the price of everything has gone up dramatically. And if you look at the cost of insurance, it hasn't gone up dramatically. And the way insurance works, it has to match the cost to rebuild and the cost to replace. And if the prices don't go up together, at some point, they're going to have to catch up. And I think that's what we're seeing across the board here. And another factor, definitely for the Big Island, and probably for Maui to some extent too, not as much for Oahu, is like everything's old, right? Like, I mean, we haven't built like new stuff in like 20, 30, 40 years. Most of our condos are like 40 plus years old on the Big Island anyway, just because building restrictions have gotten so tight. And that's an issue with cost of maintenance and all kinds of other things when it comes to an aging complex. And condos are a relatively new thing, right? It's not like we have condos for 100 years. It kind of all came up in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and then there's been a lull of building since then, and we're getting into that first wave of condos aging out or needed major renovations and major maintenance. So lots of stuff happening there, not just with insurance, but also with maintenance fees. And we're seeing that across the board as an issue too. So, all right. Anything else on this topic, guys? You guys want to add?
No.
All right. If not, let's. I got a question here that came in from the newsletter, and I think having Kevin here is probably he can add some color to this. So, info on illegal improvements. If you're interested in a property and there's unpermitted space, questions about the city hall. I mean, we don't really have city hall here. We have the county councils and the city government, but are there current fines? Are there violations? Kind of a discussion around this, and what are the concerns that you should have if somebody is considering buying property that has. And illegal is a strong term, right? I mean, we mostly refer to it as unpermitted because, yes, there's issues with that. But I mean, illegal is a strong term in terms of, if you add a bedroom in your garage, yes, it's unpermitted. But, is somebody going to throw you in jail for that? That's not the case. So in general, let's kind of open this discussion up, and we'll start with Ashley. What are your thoughts on unpermitted space, things to be aware of, things to avoid, concerns? Because I know we all deal with this a lot. So
I realize that I have to be far more cautious of what I say when this is on the internet permanently.
Tell us why.
Because what you say on the internet lasts forever. And although it is common, like many things, that doesn't mean that they cannot go without repercussions. What I'll state on the matter is the reason it's common is a bigger issue. And our DPP, Department of Planning and Permitting, is second class. It is absolutely horrendous, and it needs to be looked into. And I know it's been investigated multiple times, but to your point of going full circle to the condos and how there's new development, and now we're coming to these condos of age because there really isn't a whole lot of things that are being built new. And it's because it's almost impossible to get past permitting in any type of affordable manner. So if you're leveraging funds and you don't have liquid cash yourself, even if you do, it costs money to tie those funds up. It is so challenging to be able to do things with permits and make additions or build new. So you have a lot of people who are trying to resurrect these tear down homes because getting a permit to build it new would take 2 years. And that's just ridiculous. In a lot of other states, that would be a 4-month permit process max. So it's common for a reason, but things that are very important when we're looking with our clients for the unpermitted work is one, that they know. They know that at some point they could be called back and have to pay triple the permitting fine if they were to do any other major alterations, and that was to get called out. 2, and when you do that, you have to get plans redrawn as well. So there's an expense associated with it, and we make sure that they understand that, and we negotiate that in the price potentially. 2, that the work is done in a workman's-like manner, that electrician and plumbers and licensed professionals were involved if the permit wasn't put in place, and make sure the client feels comfortable with that, and those are vetted. 3, there's a potential the insurance might not cover those unpermitted areas, which is important for people to know and understand. Also, certain renovations need to be permitted, not just square footage, bathroom, bedroom counts, etc. But if you are looking to purchase in Hawaii, it is almost inevitable to avoid it in most parts of the island.
So I'm hearing is make sure you're working with somebody who knows what the hell they're doing, right? To help you do that due diligence, because there's a lot to that. I don't think every single situation is going to be different, and you got to make sure you're taking it on a case by case basis. But Heidi,
it's become so common. I'll add one more thing, that appraisers are now giving value to unpermitted areas or square footage if it appears to be done in a workman's-like manner, and they'll notate this isn't permitted, but it's done, and they'll give value for that. So that's how common it is here for perspective.
Yeah. And we'll ask Kevin about that after Heidi adds her thoughts. So Heidi, what are your thoughts on this, experiences? And we will be careful about what we say on the internet today.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is common. It should be disclosed, and it should also be researched by your buyer's agent and part of your due diligence when thinking about buying something. Um, because it was so common, and also because we are in need of more affordable housing, there's actually some proposed legislation to increase density in residential areas that, if passed, would actually allow multiple ohanas and even kitchenettes in houses. I mean, it would basically be a path to make legal what was already done in the past. So on Maui, in some residential neighborhoods, particularly where there's no HOAs, you would see a house that's broken up into several rentals. There might be a 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom studio. In the past, that wasn't always necessarily legal, but depending on what's passed in the future, there could be a path forward to actually making a house like that legal, which is interesting. So that's also something to watch. Um, the way that my understanding is, a lot of these unpermitted areas exist, but if your neighbors don't like you, they can report you. So that's also an interesting way of enforcement. I don't know what else I can say about that. So a lot of people don't say anything because you have to say who you are and who you're turning in, and that just, anyway.
Yeah, Hawaii style. Nobody wants to be that guy
Yeah,
that
nobody
that,
wants
that
to be
does
that
that.
person.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I mean,
and
unless somebody's doing something really atrocious, a lot of things just nobody does anything.
and I think that's an important takeaway with all this is there is no permitting police that goes out there and looks at our homes and sees if everything is permitted. It's really something has to be reported and brought to the county's attention before anything is ever done, if anything's done at all. I remember a couple of years ago, I don't know if this happened on your guys' islands, but somebody was going through the MLS and finding every single mention of unpermitted space and compiling a list and then turn it into the county. And the conspiracy theory was it was somebody who got turned in and was pissed off at everybody else who also has unpermitted space. So they were trying to bring everybody down with them. And but again, the county didn't have the nowhere near the manpower. I think there was like 300 reports of unpermitted homes or partial parts of homes that was turned in, and I don't know whatever came of that. But did you guys ever hear this? Did you guys hear this a few years ago? Somebody doing
No,
this?
but
Yeah.
I
I mean,
didn't
it might have been a Big Island thing, but yeah.
I know you can get fined for having unpermitted improvements. So, I mean, even though it's something that exists widely, it's certainly not something that, I mean, I'm recommending or saying don't worry about it. But it's something to go in, eyes wide open and see what's there. Often the difference between making a space permitted and unpermitted is just removing a stove. So, I mean, sometimes it can be fixed pretty easily.
I always find it wildly ironic that the tax department will tax you on what's there and they don't care whether it's permitted or not, but then the building department will fine you if you have stuff that isn't permitted. So the government likes to have it both ways for sure. They'll tax you for your improvements regardless if they're legal or permitted, but then they tell you shouldn't have it. So Kevin, from a lending standpoint, Ashley talked about appraisers and how appraisers are looking at it. And what do you have, in terms of advice on unpermitted space and considerations for a buyer?
So it's funny to me. This is very similar to the insurance question, and it's more like a framework that helps you decide, right? So as a buyer, if you listen to what our agents have just said, the main thing you need is the information. You need to know everything that's in play, and you need to have somebody that's capable of getting all that information to you. On the loan side, though, if you're getting a loan, if you're paying cash, that's the most important thing in my opinion. But if you're getting a loan, you remember these are decisions that are made by appraisers and these are decisions that are made by underwriters, right? And there are a myriad of ways that appraisers can get information to underwriters. There's a myriad of ways that underwriters can interpret those. And the best case scenario for a buyer is you have an agent that gives you all the information that you need in order to decide if that property is right for you, and that you have excellent underwriters and investors who are capable of taking all of that information and then translating that into what those loan options look like for you. So there isn't, to me, a really clear-cut way to handle this except for doing the pre-work, realizing that you do have to invest some time into determining what property is right for you, and what risk level you're willing to accept as a buyer. Obviously, if it's cash, it's much easier to figure that out. And then you need to be working with lending professionals, like Ashley said, that are hungry and want to and are capable of explaining to you different options and what will happen if different things come through throughout the transaction, and then can give you the information you need to make a great decision when it's necessary. It's really a framework more than it is a tried and true piece of advice that everybody can apply.
I think your comment about, what is your risk tolerance, what is your aversion to risk, is probably the most important to self-reflect on. And I always have that discussion with clients is, hey, there's going to be hair on every single deal, right? Whether it's a rock wall that encroaches a little bit, or a little bit of unpermitted space, or the railing isn't on where it's supposed to be at the pool. I mean, there's always going to be something. It's a matter of what is your tolerance for risk, because you're going to have to accept some level of it. And if you can't accept too much, then we need to look somewhere else and take that into account before you make a final decision. But yeah, that's
as a consumer, as the non-realtor on this call, the thing that's most important to me and my realtor is their ability to give me that type of information. So that, because I think a lot of times where the general public is not jiving with agents is when they don't have the information or there isn't the disclosure they're looking for. And I think that when people are selecting an agent, that's so important to have that great relationship where you've got all this documentation. I mean, you guys are obviously all clear experts at it.
Yeah, fear of the unknown is what creates.
Well, and I think that buyers that don't want to use representation have an expectation that listing agents are going to offer this information to them, and it's their fiduciary responsibility. And their fiduciary responsibility is to make sure the seller's disclosures. I'm sorry, that was my cat. I didn't know they were in here.
This is a live show.
The seller's disclosure is filled out thoroughly, and the agent is to look over it and make sure that it's done, to its best capacity. But not all agents know to look up this information. I've had listings where I'm like, well, the tax records don't match the DPP records, but it's permitted. It's in the DPP records. So benefit, you could consider it that you're paying the lower taxes for the lower square footage, but you can always take the DPP records and take it to the tax records and say, hey, charge me more for taxes. This is permitted. And this was done in the 80s, the permitted square footage. And, the agent is like, I don't see it. You're saying I don't see it. I'm like, it's just in the public DPP record. Just go online. You can type in the address. I'm driving right now. Like, I looked it up. I see the renovation. I don't see it. And it's like they were looking at these like little one-liners on the tax records. They don't know how to get into those records because it's not within their professional expertise. And a lot of people think that, realtors, professionalism and what they should know kind of goes outside the normal scope of responsibility. So they just might not be telling you what they don't know because they don't know, or, they don't necessarily know to look up a licensed person to see if they're in the BBB, and to make sure they're in good standing, or, it's so gray. So at the end of the day, I mean, having buyer representation to just back up asking the right questions to the seller's representation just adds further protection to you, because not all agents and lenders are created equal, which we've said.
Yeah, another way to look at the cost of a buyer's representative is insurance policy, right? You're prepaying to make sure that you don't get into something that costs you far more than what it would have cost you to have professional representation to begin with. So that's a great perspective.
I just wanted to add one more thing, if we have a quick minute.
Yes, absolutely.
Another place where unpermitted space becomes an issue is if you're planning on seeking a permit to do a major renovation or add on to the home or build an ohana. If there are things that aren't in compliance, likely the county is going to come back and require you to put those in compliance. And another type of property where permits are really important is agricultural land that's been CPR'd, because you might own your part of the CPR, but the owner of the other part of the CPR might have something unpermitted. And then if you pull a permit to do something, they're going to have to make their property into compliance. And I've definitely seen that happen. And it's been a huge cost to owners. So just definitely something to be aware of.
Yeah, that's a great addition. Those are those little nuances that, again, you got to know the difference whether it's a CPR or not for this to apply, but you got to be talking to somebody that knows what they're doing. So awesome. All right, we're getting to the end here, so we gotta do our diamonds and deals, guys. So I got the slides queued up here, and let's see what we got first. Looks like we got Heidi up first.
Okay, this is a new listing at the Masters in Kaanapali. It's right on the Kaanapali golf course. Oh, if you want to go back to the property.
There we go.
That's more exciting than looking at me. But this is one of the best locations in the Masters, which is right on the golf course. Amazing views, open space in front of you. This place has high ceilings. It is a little over 1,500 square feet. It's being sold fully furnished, also with that amazing surfboard that's on the wall. And it's listed at 1,695. And you are a short golf cart ride away to the beach, to go out to dinner, shopping. It's a great full-time home or second home for somebody.
Awesome. Can you vacation rent it, or is it in limbo?
No vacation rent. Yeah,
Okay.
It's rentals of 6 months or longer. It's residential community.
Got it. Beautiful. All right. Ashley, you're up next.
That's not the right price. Sorry, that's from an old listing. So when I was putting this together, it was doing a dance. I'll send you the video later, but it kept like pinging to different slides when I was filling it out. So I think I couldn't get the price in there, but it's 145. So 1,450,000. It is a 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom.
This isn't a Aloha Friday real estate show special price.
You know what? Submit an offer and I'll see what I can do. This is 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms with a 2-car garage and a lakefront community. And it's right across from a Blue Ribbon awarded school, fully renovated, custom floating cabinets, marble in the bathrooms, new drywall. It has a nice community where kids will play, heated pool, barbecue area. If you go to the next slide, there's more photos as well because photos are fun. It does have 2 lanais and a patio. So we're coming back with a new price on this one. I think I've presented it in the past.
Awesome. All right, and then I'm up last. So I got, I love to feature the Big Island properties, right, and what you can get on the Big Island. And so this is a 2-bed, 2-bath built in 2022. So almost about as brand new as you can get on 3 acres in Ranchos. So this is the down south part of the island. I didn't put the price on here. It's $350, or $450. I have the price on here. So $450, super affordable. You are very in a rural area, but beautiful home. It's nicely landscaped around the outside of it. Obviously lots of lava, but that's how it is down in this part of the island. But you got grass all around the edges, and surprisingly, you can grow a lot of stuff in this volcanic soil down there. So citrus does great. You can add a little bit of mulch and create some dirt and grow lots of stuff. So it looks more barren than it has to be. But yeah, definitely, on the Big Island, you can get a lot of land and a nice house for a very reasonable amount. And you just gotta be willing to drive a little bit to the amenities of the Big Island. So
how far from Costco is the question?
This is an hour from Costco, but it's not bad, I mean,
3 acres, under half a million.
It take you an hour to get to Costco on Oahu in traffic, right? And you only got to go 10 miles. So it's all about perspective on.
Hey.
It's all about perspective.
It looks like there's nothing around there.
That's a double-edged sword too, right? It's like it's there's no neighbors, right? I mean, there's not much going on, but it's like also if you like privacy and you don't like people around you, that's definitely something you can get. So something for everybody in the Big Island. We got the nice brand new stuff that's on a golf course, or we got the stuff out in the country, but definitely affordable. Lots of options.
It looks like you can build your own Costco in your yard too. So there's that.
got 3 acres. You got 3 acres. So it's all good to go. All right, let's do our closing thoughts, guys. We are right on time. Peter would be very proud of my time management of the show today, I'm sure. And I didn't cue you up, Kevin, but if you have a closing thought, I'll let you go last. So we'll get Ashley up first.
Comparison is the thief of joy. I think that having kids is a nice reminder of this. So there's always contention, I think, between some individuals, and just remember to look forward, keep your blinders on your own goals, your own life, and what brings you joy and what you're doing. Because the moment you start looking at others and looking to the side, you lose track, and it can really pull you down.
I love it. Absolutely. So much wisdom there. All right, Heidi.
Health is wealth, and you are your greatest asset. Invest in yourself and live the life you love. Just a remind. All these closing thoughts are really just reminders to myself and how I want to live my life. But one of the things I love about living on Maui is it's a very healthy place to live. There's a lot of people who are active outside, taking care of their health. And I just really, I'm blessed to live here. And I think that's an important thing to remember, when we're thinking about what we want to do and how we want to spend our time and where we want to invest our money. And I'm just grateful to be here. So wanted to share that with y'all.
Absolutely. Good stuff. And I think Kevin might have sent this to me. I didn't plan this when I put this slide together and then invited him to come on. But this was a reminder based on especially the event we did yesterday and spending the day with so many great people. But friendships based on business is better than business based on friendships. And I think this is probably a major mistake a lot of people make in life is they try and do business with their friends and it ends up leading to those friendships ending rather than just building friendships out of the business partners that you have. And that was one of the things that was really special about yesterday is I had this realization that there's all these amazing people that we get to work with in business, whether they be fellow agents or vendors or partners like Kevin and other folks in escrow that help us in this industry. But you develop these great friendships that really came from business, and they're people that you're friends with that you probably never would have been friends with if you weren't in business with them. And it's definitely a better way to do it than trying to force your friends into your business, which usually is not a good choice and doesn't work out in the end. So that's what's been on my mind. So what you got, Kevin?
My favorite is always that things that are important are rarely urgent, and things that are urgent are rarely important. And what that means to me is to really, it's almost a stop and smell the roses type thing, because the big things in life and the huge goals are what we should always be focused on. But a lot of times we end up, worried about little things that ultimately we won't even remember. And those are tremendously big headwinds in our ability to live big lives and focus on what we really need to. So I think that's my 2 cents for today.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Check out livinginhawaii.com. Make sure you register for the newsletter. We're always putting out new content. And as you have also been seeing on the YouTube channel, we have our weekly, our other show that happens every other week, which is very much real estate focused on lifestyle and advice. And we got a cast of characters from across the state that contribute to that. So make sure you're catching that on the YouTube channel. And those also get sent out in the newsletter so you don't miss them. But I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Let's go around the horn. I'll start off with Heidi, then Kevin, then Ashley, and say goodbye. Go ahead, Heidi.
Aloha, everybody. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Bye, everybody. Thanks so much for the invite.
Aloha Friday. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Yes. Thanks, everybody. Have an awesome weekend, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.